A Good Karma Brands radio station.
One franchise quarterback throwing behind-the-back passes. The other one throwing absolute slugs. Football is back, baby.
Live from the Anajar and Levine Accident Attorney Studios.
The man your man could smell it.
Theo Dorsey is theoretically speaking.
But are you a different animal and the same beast?
What does that mean, Kobe Bryant?
Streaming live on YouTube. Here's Theo Dorsey.
Good people. On a Monday, a Duffy's MVP Monday. It's your boy Theo Dorsey tapping in with you. Got my guy C-Cat on the other side of the glass on the ones and twos. And we got some drama stirring up in the NFL. We have a response, actually, from the Vikings camp, from the Vikings side of things, as Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback who is ever picked on, criticized, ostracized, undermined, finally no longer underpaid. He got some slugs off today on his former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Brian Flores. He hopped on the Dan Le Batard show, sitting back on a couch, feeling comfortable, and just started to tell all. Very candid. It was a Tua tell-all, and it's got us talking. It's got us going because anything with Tua and the Dolphins involved seems to always, draw a harsh line right in the middle of sports talk. And there's a billion people on the right, either, criticizing, talking down on the Dolphins, hating on Tua. And then there's the ones on the left that are trying to support the young man who's going into his fifth year now, starting at quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, third year under Mike McDaniel. And boy, if they haven't been bright already, if the spotlight wasn't already just scorching on what the Dolphins are going to do this season offensively, what Tua can be as a franchise quarterback, and Mike McDaniel on the sideline, C-Cat, it ain't going to get no dimmer based on what we heard him say today on that couch.
Holding hands, singing lullabies in the Dolphins locker room with this new, well, not even new anymore, head coach Mike McDaniel versus Brian Flores. They better perform.
They have to. I mean, and again, the Dolphins don't get judged on what they're going to do in September, November, October, any of these early months. It's about December. It's about against playoff contending teams, and it's what can you do also in cold weather. That's how they're going to get judged this year, rightfully so. They are a team that, again, I've told you once, I'll tell you again, they're not a Super Bowl contender. They're not. They're absolutely not a contender to hoist the Lombardi Trophy in 2024. They're not built that way this year. They don't have the requisite roster or experience to feel as that, but they are a team that should win a playoff game or at least have the goal of doing such. And they're a team that matters because they're very fun to watch. And also they've got they got the number one player according to the NFL 100 in the NFL and Tyreek Hill. Let's hear what Tua had to say on the Dan Le Batard show. We already have a response from the Vikings camp just about an hour ago. I'll read that off, but first, here's what started it all. Tua Tagovailoa on the couch, chopping it up on the Dan Le Batard show and being very candid about his experience, comparing head coach Brian Flores, his first 2 years in the league, to the past 2 years under head coach Mike McDaniel.
If you woke up every morning and I told you you suck at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right, and then you have somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this. Like, you are accurate, you are the best whatever, you are this, you are that. Like, how would it make you feel listening to one or the other? You see what I'm saying? And then you hear it, regardless of what it is, the good or the bad. And you hear it more and more. You start to actually believe that. I don't care who you are. You could be the president of the United States. You have a terrible person that's telling you things that you don't want to hear, or that you probably shouldn't be hearing. You're going to start to believe that about yourself. And so that's sort of like what ended up happening. And it was, I mean, it's basically been, 2 years of training that out of not just me, but, a couple of the guys as well that have been here since my rookie year.
A couple things in that from Tua. Number one, he called Brian Flores a terrible person. Like, just outright a terrible person. And I do think that he might have wanted to walk that back. He probably didn't mean it in that way, because at that point, he was just talking about the actions of Flores. You would hope that he's evolved past that, but he called him a terrible person. And then there was one thing, too, that stood out there for me, C-Cat. He said, you start to believe it. And for Tua, who went through that haze, it feels like somewhat of a hazing process his first couple of years in the league, being benched for Ryan Fitzpatrick back and forth, being, denigrated by his head coach, being told that he didn't belong. It was a haze, and I do wonder how much of that started to set into his mind, that he did not feel like he was good enough for the National Football League, and how that started to kind of get eradicated. But when you hear that, C-Cat, I mean, do you start to kind of feel bad for what he went through those first couple of years, knowing just how harsh it seemed like Flores was in his ear?
I don't feel bad for him. I'm more confused because Tua got benched for Jalen Hurts in the SEC championship game when he was in college. So that's happened to him in his past before, but these feelings are only bubbling up in his NFL time. And honestly, if you were to ask my honest opinion, that makes Tua look so soft. He looks weak as hell. If you're going to admit that a coach was coaching you hard and it hurt your feelings, so that's why he didn't play good football, and you're going to blame that for the past 2 years before McDaniel got there, that's what that tells me. If I'm an NFL coach and I'm thinking of my next quarterback and I'm a hard coacher and I tell it as it is, I'm direct, I don't want to handle my quarterback with kid gloves, and you got to handle Tua with kid gloves to get the best out of him.
See, this right here, I'm glad you said that. It does sound like there are some people that think that he needs to be coddled, that thinks that he needs to be that him coming out with this finally, again, 2 years after Brian Flores has been fired and is now offensive coordinator of the Vikings, that this is soft. It's wimpy. I would say the exact opposite from Tua. To me, the fact that he felt it was that dire, and the fact that Brian Flores objectively was a bad head coach, right? A great defensive mind, is a really good defensive coordinator for the Vikings right now, objectively was a bad head coach for him. The fact that Tua was able to endure that and then get the injection in that 2022 offseason of Tyreek Hill, Teron Armstead, Mike McDaniel, Raheem Mostert, and not be ruined by the previous experience. Like, if Tua was soft, would he have been able to bounce back from that, even with the injection of positivity and the optimism that came with the new era of the Dolphins staff? And then Tyreek Hill, who also bolstered him up a lot. I don't think Tua being soft in here is the lesson from it. I think more so Tua being able to endure that and bounce back. And I think instead of him feeling any kind of consternation or negativity about this, Tua should be thankful. He should be grateful and thankful for the valleys that he went through with Brian Flores in those first couple of years. I know that to Dolphins fans, Flores is the enemy of the state and the most decrepit human being of all time, and he didn't believe in your 5th overall pick, so we're all mad at him. We're lining up. We're trying to throw tomatoes at the dude, but he gave Tua a lot of perspective, and he gave Tua a reason to be even more grateful for what Mike McDaniel is to him right now. If you think about it, Tua went from Nick Saban, the highest of the high in college football, to Brian Flores, a guy who just wasn't fit to head coach at that juncture in his life, and now is with a guy like Mike McDaniel, has a guy like Tyreek Hill, who I credit more for the evolution of Tua Tagovailoa than Mike McDaniel. I think the injection of Tyreek Hill into that offense gave Tua something that is unmatched around the league, whereas there are many great minds in when it comes to offensive play callers like Mike McDaniel that we see popping up everywhere. This is why you should feel more confident in Tua's ability to be a franchise quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. He endured that, and he bounced back. We can't say the same yet for Trevor Lawrence. Tua should be thankful for that valley he went through, and also thankful that he's strong-minded enough to take all of that in, still performed pretty well under Brian Flores, and then afterwards, obviously now, it's been through the roof with the Dolphins. I do want to say that was our Baptist Health Orthopedic Care offseason football report. Tua giving a tell-all from the couch. Baptist Health Orthopedic Care. I mean, are you experiencing foot and ankle pain and need to see an expert in the field? Baptist Health Orthopedic Care is a team of foot and ankle orthopedic surgeons and specialists who are regarded as leaders in their specialty. Visit baptisthealth.net/ortho to learn more today. Baptist Health Orthopedic Care combines its resources of experienced physicians and leading-edge treatments and technology to provide advanced orthopedic, foot and ankle, joint replacement, spine, and sports medicine care. Visit baptisthealth.net/ortho to learn more today. Baptist Health Orthopedic Care has offices conveniently located in Palm Beach County through the Florida Keys. Learn more by visiting baptisthealth.net/ortho. Tua, Dolphins fans, and the anybody around that Dolphins organization should be thankful, grateful for what Brian Flores presented for Tua and the rest of them, because they showed them just how bad it can be and just how thankful they should be for Mike McDaniel, who comes in as a breath of fresh air, and most importantly, the biggest contribution to Tua's evolution as a player is bringing in a guy like Tyreek Hill, who comes with that same level of confidence, right? He's still, since he stepped foot in there, he's been saying, this is the most accurate quarterback I've ever had. And he's the guy that's on the field going for 1,200 yards in 4 straight seasons and double-digit touchdowns and just got ranked the number 1 player in the NFL. Tyreek Hill is the most important piece of this thing. Mike McDaniel also just a breath of fresh air.
You draft a guy inside the top 5 overall in a draft. I don't think that you get a coach that adapts to him. That player should be able to adapt to whatever head coach he has. There's a reason why he was drafted so high, because he has so much promise. I think it's kind of weak as hell if Brian Flores was a little bit mean to him and said, you're nobody, rookie, like every other rookie gets under Brian Flores, but the QB just couldn't handle it.
I see. Do they? Does every rookie go through that? And also, is it necessary? Because as a leader, your job shouldn't just be to take one style, one leadership style, one method, and present it to everybody. Tua is obviously a guy that doesn't respond well to that. He responds better to affirmations. He responds better to positivity, to people pouring confidence into him. Brian Flores is an elite defensive mind and a great defensive coordinator, and he flipped what the Vikings had on defense around in just a year, and I'm sure he'll do even better this next year, now that they brought more talent out there. But Brian Flores, as a head coach, was a failure. He was. And maybe we should be looking more at the offensive side of things. Maybe we should look at the OCs and whatnot. But the way that he at least managed the most important position, not just in football, but in all of team sports, was a failure on Brian Flores' behalf. And whether or not you like the guy, and I think he's a really good coordinator. Some guys are just bad at head coach. Look at Nate Hackett. Look at Brandon Staley. Really good coordinators at one point. Terrible head coaches. It just doesn't vibe with me that you think Tua should be the one that is like, okay, well, now I have to adapt to what this guy is saying and doing.
Welcome to the league. I was in college playing football, and now I'm doing it for my job. I guess they're going to be a little bit harder on me. Yeah. You were the golden boy in Bama. You come to Miami in a rebuild.
He wasn't, though. He's very coachable. You just admitted that at Bama in Tuscaloosa, when he had to be pulled for Jalen Hurts, which, by the way, I think it was the SEC championship game, which I was at, where Tua got hurt and Hurts came in. Really, it was Hurts that got pulled for Tua in that championship game. Tua throws the game-winning touchdown to, I believe, was Waddle on the left side of the field. And then it was the SEC championship game the next year when Tua won the position. He got hurt while Bama was trailing Georgia. I remember that game. I was on the sideline covering it, and Georgia fans were already celebrating. They thought that game was booked and done. Tua gets hurt. He gets pulled out. Hurts comes in. He saves the day, actually. And then I forget what happened for them afterwards in the championship game going forward. But that was actually an incredible moment that he also was able to celebrate with Hurts. I think he's a good team player guy. I just don't think he deals well with, like, super negativity. Some of the things he was saying Flores was pouring into him was just destructive, not constructive.
I think any player under Nick Saban will understand that they have to kind of get it with Saban. Saban's going nowhere. Obviously, he retired, but in that moment,
he's
you know that if he's won these national championships with other players, I think I got to fall in line. When you go to the NFL, the power dynamic changes. You're getting paid a whole lot more than that head coach. It wasn't like that when Tua was at Bama.
That wasn't the problem, though. I don't think that was the issue, because also Flores had issues with more than just Tua Tagovailoa in his time in Miami. And also, if you were able to adapt to Saban's coaching style, which he's not one of those hyper-negative guys. I think he gets that people give that aura about him. They think that because he's more no-nonsense. Nick Saban was a lot more cool, it feels like, a lot more chill, a lot more positive than people probably think from the outside looking in, versus Flores, who was trying to emulate the Bill Belichick thing. Before we go to break here, I do want to give out our poll, our Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections poll of the day. Who was most influential? Who contributed the most to making Tua turn around in this league? Because he has done pretty well the past couple of years. We put it out on Twitter at ESPN West Palm. You can check it out right now. It's Mike McDaniel, Tyreek Hill, Tua himself or other. You can make your vote right now. Right now, Mike McDaniel leading the pack with over 50% of that vote. The Palm Beach County Poll of the Week, presented by the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections. The August primary elections coming up. That's actually tomorrow. Florida's a closed primary state, which means that voters can only vote for candidates within their same party. A voter can change their party affiliation for the August primaries, but that date has passed. Eligible voters can vote in one of three ways, either by mail at early voting locations from August 10th through yesterday, so you missed that, or Election Day, which is tomorrow, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Visit votepalmbeach.gov to view your status and learn more. We'll see you at the polls. We'll see you on the other side. We got Mike Tannenbaum pulling up. We'll ask him who's been most influential in Tua's progression, as well as we're picking division winners in the NFL. The favorites versus the field. Mike T on the other side. That's C-Cat on Theo Dorsey. We're theoretically speaking on ESPN 106.3.
Live from the Anajar and Levine Accident Attorney Studios.